Hello there, World of Tankers, and welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Turtles Blitz, and in today's video, I'll be reviewing and talking about how to get your hands on the T26E3 Eagle 7 for free. This is a Tier 7 American Premium Medium Tank, a vehicle that features not much going for it, to be honest. It's not a bad tank by any means, but I wouldn't also call it a necessarily good tank by any means. It's a fairly mediocre, kind of like Patton, just shoved down at Tier 7. I'll be letting you know what's good, what's bad about the tank, and let's start off with how you get your hands on the vehicle for free. It's pretty dang easy. Just deal 265,000 damage within the next 10 days, and you'll get your hands on this tank. Now, there's some pretty simple calculations that go into that. If we pull out the calculator very quickly, and let's say you average, I don't know, 2,500 damage in Tier 10. So we divide the 265,000 by 2,500. That means you're going to have to do 106 battles in total to get your hands on this tank. So about 11 games on average every day. That's not a whole lot amount at all. I mean, that's like 30 minutes of gameplay a day and you'll get your hands on this tank. However, the less average damage you perform, the harder it is to get your hands on this vehicle. So let's say, instead of being like a 55, 56%er that averages 2,500 in Tier 10, let's say you're averaging 1,500 damage in Tier 10. So we do that same calculation again, 265,000, divide it by 1,500. Now it's going to take you 176 battles to get your hands on this vehicle on average. Yeah, so depending on your skill level, it is going to greatly affect how many battles it takes you to get your hands on this vehicle. Honestly, it's not too bad of a grind even if you have to play 170 games. It's 17 battles on average, probably about 45 minutes to an hour on average, and if you got the time to put in, what I would suggest to do is use that time to grind down a line, and while you're grinding down that line, you also get your hands on a free Tier 7. So that would be my suggestion. That's what I'm going to be doing on my free-to-play account. So with that aside, let's actually break into the statistics of the Eagle 7, talk about if it's even worth it to get your hands on. What I'll say is that, yeah, it's definitely worth it. I mean, if you don't have a lot of premiums on your free-to-play account, I would suggest to get it just because it's a free take. You can make credits or anything like that. So if you don't have a lot of credits, get your hands on this vehicle. You're going to make credits. It's a premium. On the aspect of how many credits and how good of a tank is it, well, it's not really that good. I mean, it's not a bad take, but there's just nothing special about it. Its top speed is very mediocre. It goes at a top speed of 42. Now, the reverse is interesting. It goes at reverse at 21. And because this vehicle carries super speed boost, it can actually go in reverse at 31 kilometers per hour, making this, if I'm not mistaken, the fastest reversing tank in the game, which is pretty cool. But it's still not that crazy of an aspect. It's not going to save you all too much, judging that you also want to use that super speed boost to get into the front line, because it increases your very lame 42 kilometer per hour top speed up to 47, which is a bit better. It's still slower than the average medium, but at least it's something. When it comes to the gun on this tank, it's okay. It's got 3.5 seconds of aiming time with 0.335 dispersion, featuring 2,110 damage per minute. I wouldn't say any of those values are incredibly impressive. A vehicle like the T20, which has been in the game for years longer than this tank, honestly features a better gun, especially when you take a look at the pen, only sitting at 202 millimeters of AP. Sure, it is AP, which means it has 5 degrees of shell normalization. Pretty solid, especially when dealing with angled armor. Unfortunately, it's still just not a lot of pen. I'd much rather have 220 APCR. It'll be so much better at getting the job done. Finally, we have the average damage, which sits at 225. It's a pretty nice average damage. I'll give the tank that. It's not as good as the CS52 Lease, which sits up at like 290, but it is still plenty to get the job done. Finally, you have gun depression at 10 degrees, which is good. I will give it credit. American gun depression is always something that that comes out strong at the end of a tank's value, and that's something that this tank can greatly boast about. When it comes to armor, its turret is 102 millimeters, and that's also the same for the hull. What I will say about the armor is that you will get occasional bounces. If you're hull down, tanks will hit your turret, they will bounce your turret, but they also will pen your turret. So don't rely on the armor, just think of it kind of like a savior device that it will work hull down, but if it starts to not work, I wouldn't rely on it against the opponents you're fighting. The hull armor of the tank is not good. Even though it's, like, decent against tier 6s, that's about it. It's 102 mils thick. It's angled at, like, a 30-degree angle, so it's probably about 140 effective. That means if you're using gun depression, you can get it up to, like, 160-ish. So, tier 6s with 140 to 160 average pen, obviously, will find the upper plate a bit troll. However, tier 7s and tier 8s are not going to pen, or struggle to pen you whatsoever. So, some YouTube videos might say the armor's decent. Don't. It's not decent. Don't rely on the armor in any way, shape, or form. It's not going to work. Let's make our way into the front line. Up against us, we have a Chrysler K and an Annihilator and an IS-3 Defender when it comes to heavies. Mobility-wise, they've got a CDC, an AMX CDA 105, and a 1390. Okay, well, let's see what we can do here. We got the Brask, which took a very weird pathing there. The Brask has not spotted all too much, though. We've got a Chrysler K going low, and... interesting. Okay, well, I'm not really sure what the enemy's doing, because we got the CDC in mid, we got two tanks going towards D. Huh, alright, well, if that's the case, we're going to try and get a very easy snap into the AMX CDC. There you go. That's a good example of where the gun will at least hit somewhat hard. I mean, this is not a crazy gun when it comes to the Alpha, but you can at least trade evenly with tier 8 mediums like that AMX CDC, which is not a bad shout at all. So we got the CC Semavente off to the side. We also got the Super Hellcat, who we got a nice slap of HE into. I obviously don't want to be penned. I'm also stuck on this guy, unfortunately. But the Semavente's got so much armor, I'm not too worried about him bleeding at all. Let's see what we can do here. Is the Super Hellcat still in the back? Hello? I'm not seeing him back here. If he is, he moved. Alright, well, got the CDC off to the side. Super Hellcat left. We can see that very clearly. And the 1390 is also leaving. No. That Chrysler, I don't even think he meant to do that. Well, even with the Chrysler showing me his entire lower plate in that angle, we physically could not pen it, which is actually really sad. I'm going to be honest. That's really, really sad. It's a great example of where the penetration on this tank is incredibly bad. I mean, standard pen of 160 is just awful. It really is. And that was a perfect example there of where you literally cannot penetrate a lot of this stuff you're aiming at. We're going to get a nice pen into the AMX CDA once, and we're going to reload here. Now, the CDA actually, not surprisingly, might actually out-reload me in most situations. Our AMX is just dying for some reason. Let's just aim it on the Super Hellcat, though. There you go. Nice clear onto his tank. At this point, our team is not doing all too good, if I'm going to be honest. Our team is falling apart very, very fast. Let's aim it on the CDA. There you go. Nice pen into his tank once. I'll take it. We got the Annihilator off to my side, who... yeah, hit us pretty dang hard, I'll admit it. And yeah, this is not exactly what I had in mind for our first battle, but there's not much I could have done about it. We did 1,678 damage and did about the best we could. This was a good example of what the T26E3 is able to do and what it's not able to do. With the awful penetration, as you saw, we were literally not able to penetrate with our standard ammo the lower plate of that Chrysler when it was shoved up at a super weak angle towards us. That actually was really sad. Now, I could have shot premium, but I just didn't think I needed premium for that, but I guess I did. But yeah, what a bad battle. But we probably did top on the team, honestly, even with the result we performed. I can't imagine our team did all too impressive. Yeah. So what I'll say is that even though the first game we didn't do great, you do got to keep in mind our team was pretty poor. We had an ISU do 0, one of the most overpowered tanks for tier 8, also did 280 damage. So yeah, our team fell apart pretty quick, which is a bit unfortunate. We had flat better tanks than they had. I mean, we had T77, Semavente, Annihilator, Brask. I mean, our lineup was flat better than theirs. It's very rare to lose a game when you have a very solid lineup like that. But the Eagle 7, as you noticed for the first game, the downsides of the tank are very easy to notice. It's easy to overexpose your tank because of the way the armor is. It's a big old boxy tank, and it's just very easy to overexpose your track wheel or something like that. But it's also the fact that it's kind of slow. I mean, you'll notice that Annihilator got very easy shells into us just because we couldn't use our mobility to really get out of that situation. It's just the way the tank works. So I will say I like the fact that it reverses fast. If Wargaming made the reverse speed really bad, it would have been awful because then you couldn't even reverse out of your situation, kind of like the TL7. But yeah, you don't have to worry about that too much. It's just getting into position takes a bit longer. That's why I always use my super speed boost. So second game here, we have a Cheeto, a T-3045, and a Britannia Panther up against against us, at least when it comes to mobility. They've got a Super Hellcat as well, which also could be counted as a medium tank, so I guess we'll find out what ends up happening here. I have just been able to use my super speed boost, though, to safely cross over towards this side of the map, where we have the Brett Panther, who we might be able to get a shell into. Against tier 6s, this is obviously where the tank's going to be a lot more effective, but, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think that that took a rocket scientist to break into, so for now, we're just going to chill here. I don't have the gun depression to shoot that Cheeto, and apparently we are showing our hatch to the Brett Panther, who is able to connect a shell. That's actually really sad, but either way, if the Cheeto pokes, we're going to get a very easy shot into his vehicle. If not, then we won't, but there he goes, poking. Nice 260 slap. Good example of where the alpha damage on this vehicle is not too bad. Alright, well, we got the Super Hellcat in mid, who's getting absolutely bedoinkered, and apart from that, this appears to be a pretty easy victory so far. I'm going to drive up this hill over here, and we're going to see if I can get some damage. There you go. The Brett Panther goes sideways, and we got a nice 230 damage shot into him. We also got a nice bounce from the T-34-85 victory, but that's also pretty expected, judging that that thing is, like, really, really poor standard pen, so honestly, I'm not too surprised. Let's see if we can get some more shells into the Brett Panther. A good example of where we're using our gun depression to aim it on his vehicle. Obviously didn't want to expose my tank, so not a bad result there. The T-34-85 victory is leaving, and so is the Brett Panther, but bonk, there you go. Nice slap into his tank. Now we're going to put on our super speed boost so we can start getting further into the other side of the map where the Somavente is. We got a nice shell into the 34-85 victory, and now we're going to use that speed to make our way over towards medium side. This is a good example of where the tank does pretty well. Against tier 6s, obviously it's going to bully him, but I don't think there's many tier 7s I can't name that that I would have struggled to really fight those tanks in any way. So even though this tank is doing a good job against tier 6s, I wouldn't say I would struggle in any other tank as it is. There you go. Nice shot into the Basoto. This is a good example, again, where the pen is not great. I mean, heck, that Basoto just went right through us, and you can see where the pen on this tank actually struggles against this tier 6 tank destroyer. The Basoto is really good DPM. It's got pretty solid pen. So overall, it's actually something you might want to be a little careful about when fighting. But we're still getting our shells out. We got the Somavente CC, who goes right through us, but at least we got the pen out. We're up to 2,400 damage dealt at this point, which isn't too bad at all. We're going to aim it on his tank again. Ah, he high rolled it. I swear that thing only has like 240 alpha. I mean, it doesn't matter all too much. We're going to win this. I just didn't think that guy was going to kill me, so oh well. Maybe it does have 260. Either way, not a bad battle at all. A good example of the Eagle 7. It's a tank that you're not going to care all too much about. Wargaming has given this tank away for free like 3 times at this point, and there's really nothing special about it. It's a vehicle that can do okay in situations like this where you have the opportunity to, but for the most case, it's just an average tank, you know? I wouldn't say there's anything special about it. So if you like this type of tank, then go for it. But for the majority of players, this is probably just going to sit in your garage after the first 20 games and never be touched again. Either way, I will grind this on my free-to-play account because there's no reason not to. If you'd like to see more content like this in the future, please do consider smashing that subscribe button down below. Before we end off the video, I'd like to see the post-game results just to see how many credits we make, just in case you wanted to know how this is on efficiency of credit grinding. So we did 2,400 damage. We probably could have done a bit more. I just played a little too aggressive at the end there. But yeah, 2,400 damage, and if we take a look, I made about 50,000 credits. I don't know if I had credit boosters on, but we can very quickly check if we take a look at statistics. Credits, we did not have credit boosters on, so yeah, we made a decent chunk, 50,000. I wouldn't say that's anything special, but we did top on the team. Helped out our team a pretty decent chunk, so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully enjoyed today's video, and yeah, if you'd like to see more like it, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below. It was 240 damage a shot. I knew it. All right, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.